I drew every day for a year.
And it was pretty fun. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Schwartz. Welcome back to my channel, and that title is kinda sorta no lie. I did in fact do an Inktober style drawing challenge for the entire year of 2024. Let me tell you how it went. Now, when I decided to do this, number one, I knew that I was going to have to set up some ground rules. I needed to set up some safeguards in place so that I didn't destroy myself physically, artistically, or anything of that sort. So my rules were these. Rule number one, each drawing had to be done in this leather-bound book. I just happened to find this one on Amazon. If I can remember exactly which one it was, I'll put a link in the description below if you're curious. The pages needed to be nice and small enough that you'd be able to do more or less a full drawing on it, but not so big that I end up getting overwhelmed by it. So I think this is maybe about 5 or so inches in length, not too big. So each drawing had to be done in here. Each drawing had to be done using ink and ink only. No pre-drawing, no thinking it out beforehand. Just either find an image or just start drawing and go. I needed to do this because that way I didn't get all caught up in my head with all of the, oh, I want this to make this look perfect, so I'd spend way too much time on the drawing portion and end up just spending way too much time on each individual drawing. So ink first, imperfections and all. And rule number 3, most important one, I had to limit myself to 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes only with no pre-drawing beforehand. That 10-minute time limit was always meant to keep myself restricted, keep myself focused in, and keep it so that I, again, didn't get too overambitious, because that was my main concern, was that I'd spend way too much time on each particular drawing. If I only had 10 minutes, then I knew that I would just have to let things be sometimes. Sometimes the drawings would be incomplete, sometimes they would look like garbage. That's okay. You spent me your 10 minutes, then you move on with whatever else I wanted to do that day.
Well, Mr. Schwartz, what kind of pens did you use?
Oh, well, I'm very glad you asked. I love talking about pens. I ended up using 3 pens over my journey with this little book of mine, and probably roughly about 85 to even 90% of the drawings were done with this little workhorse beast right here. This is what's called a Sailor Fude de Manin fountain pen. Interesting thing about this pen here is that it allows you to get different strokes because of the bent tip of the pen. This little guy was probably about 12 to 14 bucks when I got it online. I'd highly recommend getting yourself one of these. I specifically got the 40-degree one. There's another one by this brand that is 50 degrees, but that's a little bit too bent for my taste. This is about as bent as I would want them to go. But it was near the end of the year that I started getting the itch for wanting to have more control over the width of the line without having to be worried every single time about what specific angle it was at. I scored what's called a Diplomat Magnum. This is the extra fine version, and the Diplomat Magnum is probably the cheapest that you'll find what's called a flexible head nib. Now, the flexible head nib simply means that when you place the pen on the paper and press down a little bit, then the nib will flex. Intentionally, it's meant to flex. If you press on a pen that's not meant to flex, it'll just bend. And this one gives you a little bit of line variety, not a whole lot, but for only about 30 bucks, I was pretty happy overall with the amount of width that I could get in terms of line variation with this little guy here. And it was once I knew that I really liked the idea of a flexible head nib pen that I wanted to get one step up. I went ahead and got what I would consider the best budget-friendly version of if you want a nice flexible head pen, and that would be the Fountain Pen Revolution FPR Jaipur version 2 flex head nib. This little beast is something else, man. It holds quite a bit of ink, and the nib is extremely flexible. You'll see here in the footage that I'm showing right now, the flexibility of this nib is unreal. The ink flows really nicely. You'll see in a little bit that I had an extra stroke on there. That was because I was so used to using the Fude nib that I ended up doing this, where I just put the pen really far down, and so this part ended up scraping across the paper. You don't need to do that with these pens, but I've been using the Fude for so long, I've just been adjusting automatically without even really thinking about it. Those are the pens that I ended up using for this challenge. I overall am quite happy with myself that I actually did the full challenge, all 365 days, never missed a beat, even when I was creatively bankrupt, even when I was sick like a dog, sick to my stomach, splitting headache, anything, rain or shine, I got one drawing done. So I'm pretty proud of that. So now we're going to skip over to a little fast forward so you can see every single drawing I did over the course of the year. I hope you enjoy them. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the flip through. help you with something? You have to choose now to be all squeaky, playing with your toy. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, eat that stick that you brought in that I know you're not supposed to. Look at that innocent face. You think you can get away with anything, don't you? Well, you're right.